Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Heath, and I'm currently enrolled in the Curriculum and Instruction doctoral program at Georgia State. I have a focus in mathematics education. I currently work for Atlanta Public Schools as a fifth grade teacher, and I'm at a Title I school. I've been at this school for about 3 years, and in total, I've been in APS for 5 years. And then I taught for a couple more years in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I'm from. I went to Spelman College. Whoop, whoop. Got to give my HBCU a shout out. And I later went on and got my master's at UNCC. And now I'm at Georgia State. My metaphor for teaching is traveling along a flowing, raging, calm river. I really equate the journey of teaching to the journey of traveling along a river. Like as you go, who knows what can happen, right? You're going to have multiple experiences. You're going to have some twists and some turns, some problems, some unexpected things that you didn't plan for in your lesson. But then you're going to have some unexpected, beautiful things to happen on your journey also. The thing about me, I'm always thinking about almost instinctively equity. The reason why I decided to be a teacher is for Black and Brown students in particular, those who I feel aren't being given the high quality level of education that they deserve. And so when you're on your boat, when you're in this journey, you have to think about the passengers and what equipment they have. Do they have the equipment that they need for the journey? If not, how are you going to position them along the journey to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they're getting what they need as they travel along? Even when you think about your power, or how willing are you to relinquish that power as a captain and let other students lead the way? And crazy as it sounds, like we're confronted with all of those things, and it's a challenge to always think of giving up that power as a teacher and becoming more student-centered and focused on what your students need. But ultimately, I absolutely love teaching. It is a beautiful struggle, honestly, and that's my metaphor about teaching. So it's kind of sad for me to even really think about it, but if you go into my school right now, this is the bulletin board that is still up on my board. So we were never allowed or able to go back in and kind of take down our things at the end of the corona. Well, I mean, it hasn't ended yet, but at the end of the year as a result of corona. So this is what my board looks like. So as I said before, I'm a math teacher. We are departmentalized at the fifth grade level, but I also teach social emotional learning. And really, if something is important to you as a teacher, you can always find a way to include it. Because when you look at this board, it's not math per se, but I found just 5, 10, 15 minutes here or there to really expose students to things that I think are important for them. So here, this is a task of students just taking an issue that's important to them and creating a protest sign. So I took pictures of them, but they made their own pictures. They chose what they felt passionate about, that, and that's what they put up here. So if you see, there are a lot of Black Lives Matter posters, homelessness, human rights, gay rights. There are several environmental posts as well as posts on poverty. So these are all issues that I've explored with students in some capacity over the school year, and some they just bring themselves things that they're passionate about. And so we made this board as our form of protest to represent in the school. And like I said, it's kind of sad because this is before George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. Of course, Black lives have been mattering and will continue to always matter. But now we're at definitely a unique time. And I think that by exposing students to the Black Lives Matter movement prior to being out of school and prior to these events happening, that every one of them is a little more informed and they have a better understanding of what's going on. It is kind of sad to me that they have to experience this, but it's my teaching philosophy and my belief that we have to teach students how to challenge the systems that are oppressing them and that are oppressing others. So this is my bulletin board right now. Okay, so I want to talk about just a couple of things that I do with my students, and all of these things are on my Twitter page. So one of the things that I want to highlight here is volume, right? That's one of our 5th grade standards. So with volume, I was thinking about how can I make this more critical? How can I challenge and build the criticality of my students? So I thought about consumerism. Kids know about, well, they didn't know what consumerism was. We watched a short video on what it means to be a consumer, and then boom, they were able to take this Lucky Charms box and really analyze. They were phenomenal. Like, you never really know what 5th graders can do, and I would argue all kids. You don't know what they can do until you actually give them the chance to do it. Because people tell me all the time, oh, no, like my cohort members right now, they always tell me, oh no, that's too little for elementary kids, shouldn't be doing it, or they don't know how to do that. And I always push back and tell them, yes, they can. Like, these students were able to analyze messages here. I mean, they talked about Lucky Charm. They talked about Lucky himself. They said kids would feel like this is magical if they eat the cereal. They even talked about this message right here and how it would encourage kids to go online. It really was eye-opening for me, the types of things that they were able to come up with. So from that, we talked about consumerism. Then they had some actual cereal boxes that they looked at and analyzed up close. And then after that, we connected it back to the volume of cereal boxes, and students measured hands-on, and they were able to use formulas to calculate the volume of different cereal boxes. Another lesson here is on the gender wage gap. I really enjoy this. In my classroom, you'll see kids spread out everywhere. We do a lot of gallery walk type of activities where I may post up different problems or different scenarios, and they travel around in groups to go and solve them. So with the gender wage gap, I took some statistics. I don't remember exactly which site I got it from, but whatever the site was, they did a research on different jobs and how much people make, women versus men. And then they also had a racial background that I included as well. So the students with their partners, they would go and see this problem here, which has a Latinx woman on it. They were to solve this problem and then find out how much the lady made per hour and how much her annual salary was. So this is to build the skills of multiplication. So either they had the hourly wage and they had to multiply that to find out how much they make per year, or I was asking them to divide by starting with the annual salary and then divide to find out how much they make per week. So here, even though students aren't earning a wage, their parents are, right? And students had some really strong feelings about the gender wage gap. So here are some of their responses that I kept. And this student right here really blew me away. She has created a bar graph that says poor, average, okay. And then here's her shocked face, like they're really balling and making a lot of money. So she's ranked white men at the top, as we know, then white women second on this wage gap, Black men, and then Black women down here, according to our salary. So students were able to travel around and look at the different jobs. So there may have been 2 EMT workers, 1 Black, 1 white. There may have been 2 housekeeping type agency jobs of 2 or 3 of different races, and they were able to make these connections. Ultimately, every student understood that even in 2020, there is a gap in the amount of money that women and men make. And a lot of the students were outraged. Even the boys, they were outraged. This is one of my favorite lessons. It's called a Decimal Olympics. So one thing that I like to do, me and my coworkers, we always make this joke about set the stage to engage. So as students come in the morning, they're wondering like, oh, what's on the door? It's kind of like a cliffhanger. You set the door to have them thinking about or wondering what it is that you're going to do for that day. So whatever it is that we're doing, if we're doing an escape the room or anything like that, I try to decorate the room. So with this, students do certain activities like 10 jumping jacks, or there's a free choice, push-ups. I even let them do a sprint down the hallway, right? And, you know, I have to really be out there for that to make sure that things don't get too crazy. And one person is timing, and they call out the time, 4 and 162,000 seconds, etc. Like everybody in the group is repeating it. Everybody's writing it down. So it's challenging them to really be able to read, write, compare, and order decimals. So they really like this one too. Menus, I use menus a lot. Here is an example of one that I got from somewhere, I'm not sure, but they go in and order what they want, and this is to help with addition, subtraction, and multiplying of decimals. Here students solved various tasks with dividing, and the whole number division is really, really difficult for students to grasp from my experience, especially when they have the 2-digit divisors. That can be a little tough. So I try to use as many incentives as humanly possible to keep them engaged and not giving up on a difficult task. So here I did include a little sugar, a little Krispy Kreme to support them with the mission of dividing. Coordinate grids is another one of my favorite things to teach. I turn the entire classroom into a giant coordinate grid, and this way the students are actually walking it out. So if their coordinate is at 4, 2, they know to come across this axis and then go up. And I find that having students be engaged, moving around, like all those things make a big difference in their learning experiences as students. And it makes a difference in what they think and believe about their own ability to be successful in math. Here we use recipes. Fractions are also pretty difficult. So in this activity, students were doing multiplication of fractions to find out how much they needed for various recipes. So this station right here, they were making a parfait. There is another station where they were making trail mix, and another station where they were making some type of oatmeal no-bake cookies. So for each of those stations, they had to first problem solve and calculate the amount of that ingredient that needed to go into the recipe, and then they were able to make that recipe. Here is another problem-solving task. So students had to do different things with creating like a bowling alley experience. So I borrowed these pens from the gym teacher, but what they're really solving on these clipboards here is various problems related to bowling. So some of them had powers of 10 in it, and they may have to find out what is 5.12 times 10 to the third power to determine, you know, how much a bowling party or something like that would cost. So as I said before, I really just try to engage students as much as possible. Nowadays, we're really competing with technology. We're competing with a whole wide world, and I find that the ways that I learned in school by just sitting there, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 for math, or even just sitting there reading, answering questions, those kind of things are not as effective with the students that I teach. And so I always try to stay away from those things. Also, I think that you shouldn't be afraid to push the envelope a little bit, because I remember when I first started teaching like 9 years ago, I wanted to put a couch in my classroom, and everybody was like, oh, a couch? Why do you want to have a couch in your room and all this and that? And now you have flexible seating, right? So I really wish that I would have been more confident in trying the things that I wanted to do and not so much worried about what my peers and colleagues would think. If you have good rationale behind what you're doing, if you have good rationale, if you have research behind what you're doing, I say go for it. Try it. Everybody's not going to agree. Um, in my experience, even now, like some people say, oh, she's too political. School shouldn't be political. It's not political. And one thing that I like about this Gutstein book right here is he talks about everything in education being political. And when I read that, I think it really, really changed my perception, because he talks about if you're doing problems about brownies and cupcakes, I mean, that's political, right? What messages are we sending students about consuming that type of food? Or even we're sending a message about being consumers in general. And he says, and I agree, that we should take this opportunity to really talk about the things that matter, right? So instead of doing a lesson on cookies and pies, right, he talks about the salaries, the low wages that people in some parts of the world get. So just exposing students to something globally that they may not be aware of. So I highly recommend this book for math. It really opened up my eyes to a lot of different things that you could do in math, teaching from a social justice perspective. And then this book by Georgia State's very own Dr. Muhammad was an incredible book for me. And it really breaks down how we can make our lessons more culturally and historically relevant for students. And this is really, you can use it for any subject area, but she comes from a literacy perspective. So that's all I really have. I hope that I was able to be helpful to you. And I hope that I was able to give you some ideas of things that you might be interested in doing. Again, I have my contact information on the Twitter page at the front. So if you're interested, just go ahead and reach out to me there if you have any questions about anything.